Hi, I'm Nick Tinsley, Technical Field Representative for Seed Treatment with BASF. You know, late summer and early fall is a great time of the year to get out and scout your fields for two of the most important threats to soybean production, sudden death syndrome and Soybean Cyst Nematode. Sudden death is caused by a fungus that lives below ground on soybean roots. And even though we think about sudden death this time of the year, the infection actually occurs very early on in the growing season. In fact, growers who plant early to maximize yield potential are at increased risk of sudden death. It's not until late summer rains push toxins from the roots into the soybean canopy that we start to see foliar symptoms, things like yellowing or browning between leaf veins, premature senescence, and even plant death. Unfortunately, once we start to see those above ground symptoms, there's really nothing we can do to stop the yield loss other than plan for next year. Soybean Cyst Nematode, or SCN for short, is the most important pathogen affecting soybean in the United States. Every single year, it causes somewhere on the order of 100 million bushels of yield loss. SCN can be tricky too because, like the pathogen that causes sudden death, it also lives below ground on soybean roots. However, it rarely causes any above ground symptoms, and so most growers don't even realize they might be losing yield to SCN. The only sure way to know if SCN is affecting your crop is to take a soil sample. These are typically taken at or around harvest time and are fairly easy to perform. All you really need is a standard soil probe and a bucket. Now, you'll want to make sure you take a number of soil cores from various locations in the field that you're testing and mix those together in a bucket to get a good representative sample. So what we've learned from our testing program over the past few years is that most fields sampled have above threshold densities of SCN. So what can we do to help manage yield loss from sudden death and SCN once we know they're present on the acre? Fortunately, there are a number of tools in the toolbox that we have access to. The first thing you might consider is crop rotation. And while this may be very effective for helping reduce SCN densities, crop rotation won't help manage sudden death because the pathogen that causes it can survive on corn and corn residue. The next thing to consider would be resistant varieties. We're lucky that our seed catalogs are loaded with varieties that offer some level of resistance to both sudden death and SCN. And while it's important to use those varieties, keep in mind that no variety will be 100% effective against both of these pathogens. The final tactic to consider is using a seed treatment like ILEVO from BASF. Seed treatments can be very effective for managing sudden death and SCN because the infection occurs very early on in the growing season. Now, what we found through years of on-farm testing with ILEVO seed treatment is that ILEVO will typically provide around a 4.5 bushel yield benefit compared with a base fungicide insecticide seed treatment alone. And compared with our leading competitor, we typically see about 1.5 bushels benefit due to the strong nematode protection that ILEVO provides. Remember, it's never too early to start planning for next year's soybean crop. If you've got more questions about sudden death, SCN, or ILEVO seed treatment, be sure to reach out to your retailer or local BASF representative.